Hello, I am Brittany Darrington, and this is my portfolio for the Master of Educational Technology program at Boise State University. I have learned a great deal about the field of educational technology, and my teaching practices have greatly improved as a result of this program. In this video, I will share some artifacts that demonstrate my achievement of the AECT standards. The first is content knowledge. Before I was able to create, use, assess, and manage applications of educational technologies, I needed to have a clear understanding of what educational technology really means. I created this infographic using Piktochart to explain the definition of educational technology as defined by Alan Januszewski and Michael Melinda. To summarize, I believe educational technology requires us to empower learners by letting them take control of their learning through the use of new materials and provide them with the support they need to be successful. This chart takes 10 objectives from the psychology course I taught and identifies tools that could be used to meet those objectives. When we use technology in education, it should not be for the sake of saying we have used technology. There should always be a purpose and a benefit to the tools we use in our classrooms. In this assignment, I began with my objectives in mind and then determined which technology tools could help with the achievement of these objectives. This chart identifies the advantage of using these particular tools, and I believe creating a chart similar to this for every lesson would be a task that would benefit all educators attempting to utilize technology in their classrooms. To show my ability to create, use, assess, and manage educational technologies and processes, I created these content area lessons. I put the language arts lesson into practice with my students soon after creating it. My students usually complain when given a writing assignment, but creating an ebook was a new, creative way of writing, and my students eagerly participated. Before, I typically covered these 5 states of consciousness through PowerPoints and lectures, with my students fighting to stay awake. Now students conduct research on one of the topics and create an ebook using the Mixbook website that explains their topic to middle school students. When I allowed them to take ownership of their learning and create something that would be shared with others, they were engaged, and we were able to cover information that normally took weeks and got through it in less time, with students gaining a deeper understanding of the material. Standard 2 is content pedagogy. Here I will demonstrate my ability to effectively implement educational technologies through the use of an internet-enriched lesson I created in EdTech 541 and the online course I created in EdTech 523. This internet lesson includes 3 parts. Each part requires students to use a different internet application. The first is an internet search. Students go to a variety of websites and use the information there to complete the various tasks. This activity teaches students how to find information on websites and how to use the internet to learn something new. The second activity requires students to research information on the 4 lobes of the brain and create a VoiceThread presentation. This activity introduces students to a new presentation tool and allows them to be creative and have some choice in their learning. The third part of the lesson requires students to take information and create an infographic using Piktochart. The activity teaches students how to use internet tools to organize information. Students are also required to use images in their infographic, which teaches them about copyright laws and citing the images they use. As a whole, this lesson uses educational technologies to teach students new skills and to enrich their learning experience. The online course I created for EdTech 523 is one of the artifacts I am most proud of. It required a lot of hard work and time, but the end result was well worth it. It is an asynchronous course for 10th grade students about the transition from the Articles of Confederation to the U.S. Constitution. This course integrates elements of collaboration, multimedia, community building activities, personalization, evaluation, and synchronous opportunities. A variety of tools are used, including multiple websites, an interactive map, VoiceThread, Google Apps, Blackboard Collaborate, and more. Students create their own blogs to use as a learning log and reflection tool throughout the course. A collection of additional resources is provided using Pinterest. I chose to use Pinterest because it is a tool many students already use and are familiar with. This particular use of Pinterest shows students how a tool like that can be used for educational purposes. I believe the variety of tools and their use throughout the course demonstrate my ability to use educational technologies effectively. Standard 3 covers the impact and importance of learning environments. Learning environments need to be safe, respectful, and engaging. I always try to begin any course I teach with an activity that will allow me to get to know my learners and assess their needs. I am going to share some artifacts to demonstrate how I create, use, evaluate, and manage effective learning environments. First is a website on Netiquette. I created this webpage in EdTech 502 to share guidelines for proper online communication with my students. I am currently teaching an online course, so my students are participating in online discussion boards, sending emails, and completing other assignments all on the web. It is important to establish rules and expectations from the very beginning of a course. This Netiquette page tells students what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior online. Second are the online community building strategies I created. There are 6 strategies to be used in an online class to promote a sense of community among learners. The strategies include having each student create an About Me page, an icebreaker activity, weekly discussion boards, and assignments that require learners to collaborate. There is also a discussion forum called the Think Tank, where students can converse freely. They can talk about their interests, share ideas, ask each other questions, and give suggestions to one another. The discussion board would be monitored by the instructor to ensure everything posted is appropriate, but I believe it is important to provide online learners with a space for them to converse because they do not have the face-to-face interaction they would in a traditional classroom. Although online learners are often physically isolated from one another, they should not feel alone in a course. The last artifact I want to share concerning learning environments is my creation of this project-based learning unit. This unit demonstrates the type of learning environment I try to create for my students. There is a variety of activities, multimedia, assessments, and reflection opportunities to support students with diverse abilities and backgrounds. Students work in groups to create a form of media of their choosing to combat gender discrimination and stereotypes. There are activities that require students to work individually, in a group, or as a whole class. Students then get to share their creations with the community at an open house event. The learning environment for this unit is well structured and provides many opportunities to engage students in the learning process. Standard 4 is about having the professional knowledge and skills to create, maintain, and assess a learning environment where technology is used and a sense of community exists. I believe my classroom expectations demonstrate how I begin creating such an environment. The project-based learning assessment plan shows how I evaluate students in a technology-rich environment, and my blog demonstrates how I reflect upon such environments and strive to improve them. In the classroom expectations assignment I created for the online and blended teaching in the K-12 environment course, I created a voice thread for students to watch outlining the rules and guidelines as to how they should interact with one another and with their instructor. I covered discussion boards, emails, the use of emoticons, and more. Students would be required to watch the presentation and then complete a scavenger hunt activity via Google Forms. The scavenger hunt covers more Netiquette guidelines and information concerning how to handle cyberbullying. I believe that if students are going to be using technology in the classroom, they need to know how to use it appropriately. This classroom expectations assignment helps students learn how to do so and is one of the beginning steps to creating a technology-rich learning environment built on safety and respect. The project-based learning assessment plan demonstrates my ability to align assessments with learning goals and instructional activities. The assessment plan contains a table with the name of the assessment, a description, whether it is formative or summative, links to any needed materials, and the standards that are addressed. This format shows how assessments are aligned with standards and objectives in a very straightforward way, and is a great way to quickly see which goals have and have not been covered. I created this blog for my Blogging in the Classroom course. The blog demonstrates my ability to be a leader in the field of educational technology within my school district. I was hired as a technology integration coach for my district at the beginning of this school year. This blog is where I plan to share both my successes and failures. It is where I will share the innovative things I am doing to help teachers in my district successfully integrate technology into their classrooms. It is a place for me to reflect on topics within the field of educational technology. Part of creating a supportive community of practice involves being willing to share ideas and experiences with others, and that is exactly what I am trying to do with this blog. Research is an important element within the field of educational technology. I have found that teachers are much more willing to make changes in their classrooms if those changes are supported by research. In this video segment, I will share 3 artifacts to demonstrate how I have explored, evaluated, synthesized, and applied methods of inquiry to enhance my learning and performance throughout the MET program. First is my response to a request for proposals for a formal evaluation. The assignment is similar to a bid written by a contractor. I had to propose how I would conduct the evaluation, propose a work schedule, provide a list of personnel and their qualifications, and create a budget. This assignment required a lot of research on my part. I had to research different methods of evaluations in order to determine the one that would best fit this particular situation. I had to explore other budgets, salaries, and the cost of travel, lodging, and materials to prepare my own budget. I also had to consider the amount of time it would take to complete each piece of the evaluation and research the qualifications that would be necessary to conduct such a formal evaluation. The second artifact is an annotated bibliography. Annotated bibliographies are great practice for conducting research. They help me locate a wide variety of resources and provide an organizational structure for those resources. I had completed annotated bibliographies before, but this one was slightly different than any I had previously done. For this particular annotated bibliography, I was required to evaluate the credibility and usefulness of each resource. This process helped me determine which resources were the most valid and which would provide the greatest amount of support for my thesis. And third is the synthesis paper I wrote in EdTech 504. In this paper, I present research on situated cognition and make an argument for the usefulness of technology integration in creating a situated learning environment. I learned a lot about student learning through the use of real-world application from my research. I worked to incorporate this research into my own classroom. For example, instead of lecturing, I had my students interview family and community members of different ages to learn about the stages of development. In another assignment, students used an app to track the amount of time spent on their cell phones, and we discussed whether or not cell phone use is an addiction. As a result, students were more engaged and developed a deeper and more meaningful understanding of the material than if I had just lectured or read out of the textbook. My performance as a teacher was greatly improved due to the research I had conducted and chose to implement.